Welcome to the State of the Buccaneers podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Pfefferkorn, and this is the biggest and only fan-read podcast of the East Tennessee State Buccaneers. We'll get right back to you after the tune. Welcome back to another episode of State of the Buccaneers. I have a big episode for you, planned for you tonight. It'll be a great episode. It's going to be my last episode of 2025, and we're going to be previewing the upcoming SoCon schedule for ETSU and just how the basketball team looks heading into SoCon play. We're going to be talking a lot about Coach Will Healy's staff. He's had some staff announcement. We've started to get some portal commits. I know we've lost a few players to the portal already. I think I'll have to look up. There's one guy I'll talk about later. I'm kind of surprised left. There's been defections to other FCS teams, to FBS teams. Some that follow Trey Lamb, Tulsa, but we'll get into that here in a minute. But I have a great episode for you planned for you all tonight. I hope you all will enjoy it. It's been about a week and a half, so 2 weeks maybe. I rushed to get an episode out right as the holidays were starting. So hopefully you all have caught that. But without further ado, I'm here to bring back State of the Buccaneers. Right here for our New Year's. It's almost New Year's Eve. It'll be up on New Year's Eve. But there'll be a New Year's special for State of the Buccaneers. So Happy New Year to all your family. I'll bring that back around at the end. There's a lot of stuff here in the new year I'm going to be announcing and excited to present for y'all. I'll leave that towards the end, but I'm going to get into some ETSU football discussion. Without further ado, I'm going to start off by talking about the big announcements. Will Healy's staff. They've been kind of quiet, relatively quiet since he got hired a couple weeks ago after the shocking announcement of Trey Lamb's departure. It's been kind of quiet, but Will Healy, I think his staff looks good. I'll say that. He announced his hires for the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions. Both have a lot of experience. Defensive coordinator more so than the offensive coordinator. We'll start off with his offensive coordinator. He hired Cam Aiken. Cam Aiken currently was an analyst at Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin in 2024 and 2023. 2023, Ole Miss went 11-2 and won the Peach Bowl. It was the first time Ole Miss had won 11 games in a season. He's good. He was a small part of that. Probably good as an analyst there. In 2024, the offense had 521 yards per game and 37.5 points per game. So before that, he was at South Florida as the running backs coach and run game coordinator under Jeff Scott. Of course, Jeff Scott didn't have the greatest tenure there, but the running game, I checked the stats, of course, once he was hired. The run game was never the issue there. I think it was just a program mess across the board. A lot of South Florida's talent went elsewhere during that time period. It's a struggle as a G5 school, but Cam Aiken had coached one of the 6 1,000-yard rushers at South Florida. Brian Batty is probably the most notable name there. And they had a pretty good run offense. I know he sort of fits what Will Healy's looking for in an offensive coordinator. Will Healy really wants to have a run-first offense, which is kind of weird in today's pass-happy game. But at ETSU, it's always been about running the ball. Look at Quay Holmes, Jacob Sailors this past season. Even the air raid, when we were running the air raid, our running backs were our strength. But he also comes from the Dabo Sweeney tree. He was a assistant at Clemson for the past 10-ish years as well. Helped win a couple two or three national titles there. I believe it was probably two. I forget. Let's see. Trevor Lawrence. In 2018, he was 30 under 30 rising stars, and just worked with Clemson's offense during that time. They had a number of great offensive teams with Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. We'll whisper that name. But he worked as a grad assistant at UAB, graduated from Clemson himself back in 2011. He sort of worked his way up, grinded his way up, as most assistants do. This is probably his first big chance at being a play caller. He's probably been waiting for that. South Florida, he got a little bit taste of being a big time position coach, but he went back to under a experienced head coach in Lane Kiffin. It's crazy calling him that now, because I remember when I first started watching football, Lane Kiffin was the kid from Southern Cal that dipped out, did a Trey. Well, we'll call it doing a Trey Lamb, but Trey Lamb did a Lane Kiffin to Tulsa. But yeah, I'd rate the hire about a B-. Great experience. Not sure what his offense is going to look like. A lot more question marks there than the defensive coordinator candidate. So hopefully it works out for Will Healy, because if it don't, things could go south pretty quickly. Offensive coordinator is probably the biggest hire, if we're honest, because I know Will Healy is more of a CEO type coach. He worked with the running backs at Georgia State, and I guess getting a coach that knows the run game, knows what Will Healy's approach is going to be, is the biggest thing here. So I'd rate it about a B-. I wouldn't rate it like a C. I wouldn't say C. The one negative we did find, some of us fans did find, Cam Aiken isn't on social media. At least I don't think so, which is going to be tough in the recruiting world. I know Will Healy does, and Chad Staggs has a Twitter. They both have Twitters, but Cam Aiken does not. So I don't know how directly he's going to be involved with the recruitment, or if he's just going to be sort of a hands-off offensive coordinator that's focused strictly on game management, and other staffers are going to sort of be the big recruiters, or Will Healy himself going to be a big recruiter. I'm not sure how his full staff is going to be positioned. I know several of the former interns and position coaches were let go. Only about 3 or 4 followed Trey Lamb to Tulsa. The guys he brought with him, of course, Joe Scelfo, or however his name's pronounced. I don't feel the need to learn it right now. I think his defensive coordinator both his coordinators went with him, and one of the position coaches. I forget our DC's name last year. I should know it, but it's in the past now. But Cam Aiken, I'm okay with the hire. We'll see how it goes. It's a wait and see for me. But for me, the hire that impressed me was the defensive coordinator hire, Chad Staggs from. He was this past year. He was a senior defensive analyst at Western Kentucky. He has quite the experience in the FCS and G5 ranks. Um, he was prior to Western Kentucky this year. Um, well, at Western Kentucky this year, they finished seventh in the nation with 26 turnovers, 15th in interceptions, and seventh with 11 fumble recoveries. In 2023, he was the defensive coordinator at Georgia State under what's his name? I forget his name. He went back to South Carolina because Georgia State had a new coach this year. They went 7-6 and won their bowl game. Oh, I'll find it. What was his name? Georgia State previous head coach. Sean Elliott. It was Sean Elliott. That's who it was. Who resigned after quite a while after the season had ended to go take a position coach role back at South Carolina, which was kind of a cheap move. Probably why his staff were analysts at different schools. Or watch Staggs was an analyst at Western Kentucky last year. He held the same position at Coastal Carolina for 4 seasons under Jamie Chadwell. Before that, he was the intern coach when Chadwell went to Liberty. Another former, I think I've talked about it on the podcast here before, but Jamie Chadwell, former Buccaneer quarterback back in the 90s, has slowly rose through the coaching ranks from like D2, small D2 schools to I'd say a mid-size G5 at Liberty with a lot of resources. But they're in CUSA, so I can't say they're top of the G5. They're about mid-size. But a lot of resources there, obviously, since it's Liberty. But Staggs was under Chadwell. He was sort of in those coastal defenses, played really good. They went 31-7 over his last 3 seasons. He was a Broyles Award semifinalist in 2020. He's been a defensive coordinator for a long time before this. He worked with alongside Chadwell at North Greenville, Delta State, Charleston Southern. Took a slight detour to Furman, which is some SoCon experience. Furman, I believe. Let me look up 2019 Furman. Let me look up 2019 Furman. Let's see. Not sure how they did that year. Oh, they went 8-5. He was actually with Furman for 1 season. No, 2 seasons. They made the playoffs the first year and were tied for the SoCon championship his second year before he went back to alongside Chadwell at Coastal Carolina. Let's look at what else he did. He was ironically enough, he was a defensive coordinator alongside on the coaching staff alongside George Quarles at Furman his last year there. Let's see what else experience he has. 2020, of course, was a wild season for Coastal Carolina. They went 11-1 and were as high as number 9 that season. I myself bought a Coastal Carolina shirt just because I thought the mascot was cool, of course, and just enjoyed their style of play under Jamie Chadwell. Their defense that season was number 19 in FBS scoring defense, number 31 in total defense, and number 16 in pass efficiency, and number 9 in turnover margin. Lots of NFL draftees and talent on those squads. 2021, he was top 25 in FBS, total defense and scoring defense. Once again, Paladins, they had a lot of defensive power. In 2017, they had 34 sacks, going 8-5. 2019 and 2018. Yeah, I've mentioned everything they have here before. Charleston Southern had a wild record under Jamie Chadwell. They won a total of 35 games there, 2 Big South championships, and FCS playoff berths. I remember those teams. 7th nationally in total defense and 9th in 2015. 7th was in 2016. They won in 2013. They won at App State. That was one of App State's last years in FCS, I believe. They went 2013. They went 10-3. Delta State, same thing. Just kind of all over the place. Started his career out. I'm just kind of reading down his accomplishments page on the announcement article. He actually graduated from USC Upstate and holds a master's degree from South Carolina. I guess he didn't play. He didn't play there. Began his coaching career in high school in South Carolina. Grad assistant South Carolina under Steve Spurrier and Lou Holtz. But that hire excites me. Somebody who's had success as a defensive coordinator at both the FCS and FBS levels. One of Jamie Chadwell's guys. I wonder if Chadwell's like, hey, Healy, you should hire him. I think he'd be a good hire. Not sure what the deal is there, but I'm excited for that hire. I think that's a solid A hire in my opinion. Yeah. I think those 2 hires are pretty good. Up and down, there's a lot of leeway. I think I definitely like the Chad Staggs hire more than Cam Aiken. Cam Aiken's an all right hire. But it's about the best we could do at this level. Honestly, finding someone from experienced staffs, picking them off to come down to FCS level. Hopefully his experience and just being around those coaches, something's rubbed off and he knows how to call plays to the best of his abilities. But that's all I have as far as those hires. The next piece of business, let's find it. I've gotten into it in the past, but ETSU's 2025 schedule was officially announced as far as what's it going to look like moving conference play, dates and times. Maybe not times yet, but just the dates of all the conference games and non-conference games. I can share. Let me share my screen real quick because this will be a nice thing to share. Let's share screen. 2025 football schedule. We start off at home against Murray State. Good FCS. Well, I wouldn't say a good FCS opponent, but an FCS opponent at home. We go on the road at Tennessee. Of course, that's the big game. We're probably going to get blown out, but never say never. We then go on the road to West Georgia, a recent move up from D2. Hopefully we can win that. Hopefully we don't get surprised. We play Elon at home for a return trip. We should win that. Should win the Murray State and Elon games. We open with a tough one against Mercer. Mike Jacobs returns, of course, the defending SoCon champs and playoff team. We'll see how good they are next year. Then we go on the road to Furman. I'm sure Furman's going to be bounced back this next year after the horrific season they had. They beat us, of course, somehow. Probably Trey Lamb knew he was probably leaving and blew that game so he could move on. That's my theory, at least. We got versus VMI. Then at Chattanooga. Hopefully we can finally break the spell against Chattanooga. Versus Wofford. And then at Sanford, at Western, and close the season against Citadel. We kind of play the inverse. A lot of tough games on the road, especially that Furman game. Western will be tough. Sanford will be tough. No telling how Wofford, Citadel are. In VMI, we should win VMI, should win Wofford, should win Citadel. Those three we should win, especially since they're at home. Mercer will be the toughest by far. Sorry, I'm tired while I'm recording this, but yeah, that's a quick preview of the schedule. Let's stop sharing again. Yeah, pretty solid schedule. Nothing too fancy. I think I've covered the non-con in the past, so we won't talk too much about it, but it was officially announced since the last time I came to y'all. Let's go the next part. Sort of talking about the portal. It's been kind of quiet out there for ETSU fans. A few players leaving, but not a whole lot of gains till last night. Several players committed to ETSU. We just got a bunch of word. There may be more on the way. But the big losses, we did lose Jalen George to Nebraska. Who was it? A big also SoCon performer. Best of luck to him. He was an FBS talent. Let's see. Who was the one transferred to Tulsa? Three big ones I know of. News. Let's see. ETSU football. There's someone that transferred. Let me go find this. Believe it was. Forget who it was. No, Miata Jones transferred to Austin P. He was an all-SoCon performer. He transferred there, and then who was it? Yeah, he transferred to Austin P, which I don't like. Who was it on that roster? I'm trying to go find who it was. I forget who was it. Who was it that transferred? It wasn't an offensive lineman, but can't find who. Trying to find the name of the person that transferred. He's down here somewhere. He was a linebacker, I believe. Can I find it? Not him, not him. still haven't found it. Ray Coney, big time impact player, Ray Coney. Sorry if I was quiet there for a few seconds. Ray Coney followed Trey Lamb to Tulsa. He was the big player that followed Trey Lamb to Tulsa. And that was our last big loss. I mean, there's others, but those are the big three that I can name off the top of my head. Of course, it's not been all bad. We did get a few commits in the portal yesterday. Two big ones from Central Florida. I believe he was a 4-star lineman. Jonathan Klein, 6'4", 280 from Cartersville, Georgia, signed with us. Let's go find him. He was a former top 100 offensive line and ESPN top 300 recruit. So hopefully he lives up to his potential with us. First big, that was the first one that was announced. Then Caven Call, also from Central Florida, committed. He was a former 4-star defensive end out of Opaka, Florida. I believe that's how it's pronounced. We got commit from an offensive lineman from Murray State. He's a former Southeast Missouri Conference Offensive Lineman of the Year and 3-star starter at Murray State, Ashton Flynn. That'll be big help on the offensive line, replacing some of the talent that left, either graduated or went in the portal. Let's see, did he play at SEMO too? I'm not sure. It didn't clarify. They don't keep stats for offensive linemen on ESPN. Southeast Missouri in high school. Okay, that's what they're talking about. I was like, did he play at SEMO before he went to Murray State? That'd be weird. But yeah, that was another big pickup. And then the two final pickups for right now, we did get a player named Cole Keller from, let's see, let's go find Cole Keller. Stats from Washburn University. He was the former All-State Missouri football, multi-sport preseason All-American athlete, D2 athlete. He's a tight end from Washburn University. Let's look at his stats. Stats for this season. Didn't play too much. So he'll be a nice depth piece. Probably more of a blocking tight end, honestly. Let's see. In the last commit was Navian Cargill. Find him. Navian Cargill. He was a former top 100 player. He initially committed to Illinois. Transferred, didn't end up going anywhere. And then ended up at Iowa Western JUCO, I believe. I believe Iowa Western's a JUCO. He was a former top 100 nationally ranked tight end. But all those pickups, that's a great start to the portal and recruiting classes for Coach Will Healy. And keep it up, Coach. Hopefully we can get a full class to replace all our graduates and transfers. But yeah, I think that's all I can say. Excited for the portal commits. Excited for staff. But I think that's all I have for football tonight. So I'm going to do a quick transition. I'm Let me find. To transition to basketball, I'm going to do a trivia question. I haven't done a trivia question here in the recent episodes, but last year in the SoCon tourney, we played VMI, which is going to be our first opponent in the SoCon schedule this season. In that game, we beat the breaks off of VMI 98-66, and there was some drama at the end of the game, but we won't get into that right now. But my trivia question here today is, who was the leading scorer in that game for ETSU? Was it A, Ebby Asamoah, B, Humari Peterson, C, Jaden Seymour, D, Karan Boyd, or somebody else? Fun fact, it was none of the above. It was Tyler Rice, transfer to, I don't believe he's playing that much at Hampton, but he started 4 games and averaging. He's doing about what he did here last year. But Tyler Rice scored the most in that game with 13 points. Jaden Parker and Jaden Seymour both had 12. Ebby had 11. Braden Illick had 11. Mackay had 12. But if you answered Tyler Rice, I bet there's only a few of you out there that answered that correctly. The diehards. I probably wouldn't have answered that correctly either. Let's be real. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly transition, sort of give you guys something to think about. The basketball team has had a rough December. It's been up and down all over the place. That 3-game road stretch, I believe I talked about Jacksonville last time we were together. No, I don't think we had, because there was the episode with Casey right after Will Healy was hired. They had a 2-game road skid, and it didn't get any better at Jacksonville. Let's see. The Bucks dropped. They had a chance late to get back in the game, but they let Jacksonville pull it up, 60-52. The Bucks had that brutal 3-game road trip where they only shot 34% from the field. That was in the Jacksonville game, at least 34% from the field and 4 of 14 from free throw line. That was an absolute killer. It's killed us all year. They're out rebounded by 4 by a team that don't really have that much size. It was just a rough game. None of those games ended up being road wins, so we're very close to 500. We finished just above 500 for non-con play. We'll kind of get into those games here in a minute. John Buggs was probably one of the few bright spots. He had 15 points. He made 5 of 8 threes. Q didn't do his usual, wasn't his usual self, only scored 13. 4 rebounds and had 5 assists. Seymour struggled that game, and the Bucks dropped to 6-5. Jacksonville just balled out against us. Let me find who their leading scorer was for that game. It was, I believe it was Robert McRae, who's a former Forbes commit at Wake Forest. Yeah, he had 22. Robert McRae the 5th. Oh, I'm sleepy. Sorry about this. I'll try to wrap this up as soon as possible, but it's going to be kind of a quick episode tonight. But after that game, horrible loss, the Bucks bounced back with a big win over Elon. Elon, to this point, had played great all year. They blasted Elon 84-58. Just kind of took Elon out of the game early. Elon had a player go down. It was Kumari led the team with 19 points. Ty Simpkins went down early, or TK Simpkins, Elon's leading scorer, went out early, and his brother, I believe it's his younger brother, TJ Simpkins, led the team in scoring 27 points. If he wouldn't have done that, Elon would have got blown away. At that point, Elon had in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, had gone 7-3 to that point. And had wins over Wofford, former fellow conference mate. Kept it close with North Carolina for a while, and the surprise, they went into Notre Dame and beat them 84-77. After ETSU, they followed it up with 2 wins over UNC Greensboro and Marshall. So I'd say that's an impressive win for the Bucks. As they just played great team ball, shot 71% from the line, 31% from 3. Kumari had 19, Bugs had 11, Seymour 17. The bench scoring was quite a bit. Mackay and Roosevelt Wheeler both played great ball. So it was a big win over Elon. Got us to, I believe it was 7. Let me find. Yeah, I got us to 7-5. The final game. Before us getting up to current date, ETSU went on the road again to Kansas City to take on the UMKC Kansas City Kangaroos, who after our game moved to 8-7. They were 7-7 before the game, but they beat us soundly 73-66. We kind of struggled as a team overall on the day, and just ended up losing. We just couldn't contain them defensively. Their starting line went off against us: Jamar Brown, Jason Petty, Babcar Diallo, Cameron Foss, and Mevelin Ebelonki. I believe I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm too tired for this, but they just played good team ball and hit their free throws. We did not. We shot 30% from 3. They shot 52%. That's the difference. Q had an absolute masterclass. He had 30 points on the game. Roosevelt Wheeler continued his good play with 9 points. Mackay had a little spark off the bench. Seymour. We didn't get any. Well, I think Karan Boyd got hurt this game. Haven't been getting much from Davion Bradford. He's got to step up. And Bugs didn't have a very good game. Shot 2 of 11 from the field, from 3 as well, which is one and the same. Just kind of a disappointing game for the Bucks, but great game for Kumari Peterson. He continues to play at a high level. I think he should be the favorite for SoCon Player of the Year so far. He's just been balling out at another level. I don't think any other player in the conference has something for him. I don't think it's a discussion so far. We'll see when we get into conference play, but the Bucks finished non-conference play at 7-6. A little disappointing for the talent we have. We should be a little bit above 500. Shouldn't have lost some of those games. Eastern Kentucky is the most brutal. Of course, Jacksonville's brutal. James Madison's brutal. All those games are brutal. We just need to come together as a team, get more in unison, get like we were in the tournament last year. I think we can do it. SoCon is kind of top heavy this year. You have a bunch of teams at the top with winning records, and then the rest of the conference is kind of meh all around. Thus far in SoCon play, there hasn't been any conference games yet, but Furman leads the pack at 12-1. Sanford, of course, back again at 10-3. Chattanooga 8-5. Then ETSU at 7-6. Mercer at 7-6. Let's look at their full standings. UNC Greensboro at 7-6 as well. Let's find the filter. UNC Greensboro at 7-6. VMI Wofford at 6-7. Western at 5-6, and Western Carolina all alone at the bottom with a 4-7 record. So it'll be tough. It'll be a tough conference once again. SoCon always is. ETSU opens up on New Year's against VMI at noon. I will be at that game. Then we go on Saturday against Wofford. I will also probably be at that game. Yeah, I will be at that game. It's going to be 2 big games in a row. We then go on the road at Mercer, and then versus the Citadel, at Furman, at Sanford, Western, Chattanooga, UNCG are all the games in January. So it's a typical SoCon slate. Good thing we open our first 2 games at home. Going to need to get a strong start. We don't play any of the tough teams till about the second week of January when we go on the road to Furman. That'll be a big game. At Furman, at Sanford. Back to back. That's going to be rough. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about SoCon play. I think the Bucks have some all right momentum going in the SoCon play. We got to step it up, though. Non-con play, we kind of messed around too much. We got to start coming together as a team. Help Q and Seymour out with consistency. Bugs has started to get there. It's gonna hopefully Karan's not injured too bad. Hopefully he can play down the stretch. That's what killed us last year. Why we were seventh seed, playing on Friday in Asheville. But yeah, that's about all I have. I think everybody's excited for SoCon play. This team, Brooks Savage, I think he's going to have the team ready for it. I think the whole team wants to get back to Asheville this year and get to the tourney. It's going to be a tough road, especially playing like Chattanooga, Furman, Sanford. Those teams are always tough. UNC Greensboro, they're tough too. They gave Indiana a game. Yeah, I'm not sure how we finish. This is about where we should be for the moment. Hopefully we can overcome some of those rough non-conference losses and even things out. But yeah, I think that's all about all I have for tonight. Sorry about the tongue twister. I'm getting tired. All I have for men's basketball. Women's basketball, they've been up and down. Of course, they had that big win against Memphis. Got smoked by West Virginia. Had a few wins over Radford, UNC Asheville. This were in a tournament at Florida Gulf Coast over the Christmas break. Beat IU Indy and lost to Florida Gulf Coast. Their next game is against Tusculum at Brooks Gymnasium, and then they start conference play. So we'll see how they do. They've been up and down. Less exciting than Coach Brown's first 2 years. I just think they have a lot less polished offense this year. Hopefully they can dominate their schedule as well, because it'd be nice to see them get back to the tourney. It's been a long time for them. But yeah, that's all I really have as far as sports-related stuff. It's kind of a short episode tonight, but it's still 45 minutes, so you'll have some good content there. One last thing, I'm going to get into my closing remarks here. I thank you all for just watching and sticking with me throughout this year. It's been a year of ups and downs. The first year of the podcast. I appreciate you all. I've had some great guests. Would love to get some more guests on. More ETSU players, more ETSU fans. If you're interested in getting on the podcast and making it better, if you have any suggestions at all, drop them to me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever way you can contact me. Facebook, because I post in some of the groups on Facebook and on my personal Facebook page. But I appreciate all the support and love I've received for this podcast. I couldn't do it without y'all. I probably would still be doing this even if there weren't people listening. And I'm just thankful, eternally grateful for each and every one of you that supports Buccaneer Athletics, supports this podcast. So yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to you all, because you are the best. You truly make this podcast work and flow. If you ever want to support me, just let me know. If there's any way you want to, or if you have suggestions, I may set up a Patreon in the near future or something like that, just to fund tech and opportunities, because I want to see this podcast grow here in this new year. I've been kind of wishy-washy with my upload schedule, taking breaks. It sucks because I work of 9 to 5 and have a lot of stuff to take care of. But I love you all, and I appreciate it. I just wanted to also talk about some of the new projects I'm planning for this year. First one is a special for this channel. I just want to do a breakdown of the history of ETSU football. I may do one for basketball as well, but football is the first one, since I have a book that covers the history of ETSU football. I want to talk just about the history and the impact ETSU football has had on the region and the nation abroad, and the turmoil the program's gone through, and the amount of energy it took once football was dropped to get it back in 2015, to see those Bucks back on the field. Because I was a kid when this happened. I wanted ETSU football. I was like, why did they drop the team? And it's going to be a video project. It's going to be more narration based, so you won't see my face. I'm going to try to find like pictures, maybe have some video element or on location stuff where I just film myself, go along and just go outside like Green Stadium and just like start talking. Hopefully no one sees me and is like, "Hey, what are you doing?" But it'd be a good project. I am 100% planning on doing that. I think I mentioned it a while back. But yeah, that's my number one project. Number two, I am going to branch out podcasts from just the State of the Buccaneers. I am planning on doing it's a complete 180. So I'll keep it in like a family podcast. I know Sectator Media is a lot about sports, but I'm going to have a separate podcast. It's going to be a movie podcast because I love film. It's one of my other passions outside of like being a sports nerd. I'm not as much as like a cinematography nerd. I just love discussing film, love watching movies, and just sort of ranking them. So my podcast, I don't have a name for it yet, but the podcast is going to be sort of where I watch a film, have a guest on that wants to watch a movie with me. We're going to watch the movie and just have a full on discussion about it. And after the podcast is over, I'm going to keep a list of every film we've watched and just sort of rank them on personal preference and just sort of place it. The list will probably get long eventually, but once it gets that long, we'll figure out placement. Just sort of like thumbs up, thumbs down, the old Roger Ebert sort of style. And I'm kind of inspired by some other podcasts. There's a horror movie podcast I watch. One of my buddies runs a comic based podcast, like sci-fi comic. I just kind of want to do something in that vein. Also, shout out Sectator Media. I know it's been kind of dead for a while, but hopefully other content creators get fully invested back into it. Would love to have any of you all on, get Cody on again soon. But yeah, that's the only other thing I may do I don't want to get too ambitious with like 19 podcasts, but I would love to do a college sports podcast as well. That may be further down the line since I just run this one already. But yeah, I appreciate you all once again. And that's all I've got to say to you all tonight. Happy New Year. Hopefully have a great New Year with your family. Hopefully you all had a Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate. Best wishes to you. Go support Bucks for Good. Support your student athletes. And that's all I have. So Godspeed and go Bucks. You all have a good night.